Francisco? Não, tu deixa de estar sentadinho. Mónica, ainda está muita gente fora? Okay. Welcome back. So we are now going to start the 8th panel from the 5th Maritime Security Course. And as a moderator, we have Francisco Oliveira from the Atlantic Center. I would like to take this opportunity to ask you for a round of applause to Francisco, which went through... He went through a living hell for the last few weeks, and the amount of pressure I put in Francisco was huge, but is the main responsible that we are all here together. Thank you very much, Francisco.
Obrigado.
Then, as a speaker, we have engineer Jailson Pereira, which is the coordinator for the Mangrove Protection and the Restoration Project, Tiniguena. Julia, the founder of AMANZI, and Nana Kweigyah, which is the head of Ghana Canoe and Fishing Gear Owners Association. Thank you very much for being here.
So, good morning, everyone. Jailson will start. Good morning, everyone. I will follow the great lessons of Professor Tanísia and say, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all awake. This panel is about the role of civil society, local and regional initiatives. Throughout this week, you've been dealing with the multidisciplinarity of climate change and its relation to security challenges and the security challenges it provokes. And we thought that we need to bring civil society to the table. And this is what this panel is all about. We brought organizations, local NGOs, that represent local communities, and they will share their side of the story. The first one to start is Engineer Jailson Pereira. Jailson Pereira is the coordinator of the project of protection and restoration of mangroves and productive landscapes at Tiniguena. He is an agronomist, graduated from the University of International Integration of the Afro-Brazilian Lusophony in Redenção, Brazil. As David William has said, thank you for abbreviations, so it's Unilab. So Jailson joined Tiniguena, Esta Terra é Nossa, in 2019. Since then, he has been involved in several agricultural projects implemented by the organization, contributing technical assistance to initiatives such as the Local Purchases Project, Catanhês Resilience, the RED project, which is all funded by International Fund for Agriculture Development, and he's also a tenured professor at the Amílcar Cabral Public University in Guinea-Bissau. Jailson, the floor is yours. Before Jailson takes the stage, so Jailson will have a presentation in English, but he will do his intervention in Portuguese. At our request, the intervention is all in English in the PowerPoints. In the end, we will also show a video that explains the whole mission. So if there's anything that the word that probably does not, you don't understand very well, I will try to translate and do the best that I can. Jailson, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Bom, antes de começar, gostaria de agradecer o Centro Atlântico pela oportunidade de poder apresentar a ONG Tiniguena, assim como os resultados do projeto Arroz em Mangal, Rice in the Mangrove. Só de lembrar a todos que as consequências das alterações climáticas já são sentidas e verificadas na Guiné-Bissau. E durante o COP21, especialistas destacaram que a Guiné-Bissau seria, depois de Bangladesh, o segundo país mais vulnerável à subida do nível das águas do mar, devido ao aquecimento global. E o governo, em parceria com as organizações nacionais e internacionais, tem implementado estratégias de adaptação, como reforço do sistema de alteração precoce, promoção da agricultura resiliente ao clima, investimento em infraestruturas para proteger as comunidades vulneráveis e ecossistemas costeiros. Agora vou dar seguida à apresentação. A ONG Tiniguena é uma ONG nacional da Guiné-Bissau criada a 5 de junho de 1991, cuja missão principal focaliza-se na promoção de desenvolvimento participativo e durável, baseado na conservação e gestão racional dos recursos naturais e dos valores culturais, associado como o exercício da cidadania ativa. Significa: esta terra é nossa em Kassanga, um grupo étnico do norte da Guiné-Bissau presentemente ameaçado de extinção. De modo geral, a Tiniguena estrutura a sua intervenção em 10 temáticas prioritárias, sendo ambiente, biodiversidade, jovens e mulheres, educação ambiental para a cidadania, economia local, mudanças climáticas, governação local, comunidades tradicionais, agricultura familiar camponesa e transparência na gestão dos recursos naturais. Ao longo de 3 décadas de existência, a Tiniguena construiu uma estreita relação com os agricultores familiares e camponeses, ao longo de todo o litoral sul do país, com foco nas regiões de Bulama de Bijagós, reconhecido pelo Unesco como Reserva da Biosfera, Quinara Tombali, todos no litoral sul do país, especialmente perto das áreas protegidas do Roque, Cufada e Catanhês, respectivamente. Mais recentemente, no âmbito de alguns projetos em curso, esta relação com as comunidades locais foi alargada para as zonas de Cacheu, Oio ao norte, Bafatá, Gabo a leste. A Tiniguena trabalhou em 5 projetos de alto nível, com foco na proteção dos ecossistemas, aprimoramento e contribuição para as práticas agrícolas mais sustentáveis, nomeadamente nos projetos proteção e restauração de mangás e paisagem produtiva para fortalecer a segurança alimentar e mitigar as mudanças climáticas, que visa apoiar a restauração e reabilitação da funcionalidade dos serviços de ecossistemas de mangrove degradados para melhorar a segurança alimentar e a mitigação das mudanças climáticas. Esta temática de intervenção também conta com projetos de inovações para a agricultura familiar e inteligente face às alterações climáticas na África Ocidental, denominado Tiban Ancatequeo, que tem como propósito aumentar a capacidade de adaptação da agricultura familiar nas ilhas do Roque para enfrentar o desafio das alterações climáticas e garantir a segurança alimentar, o rendimento econômico dos agricultores e a sustentabilidade ambiental dos sistemas de agricultura familiar. A Tiniguena faz parte de uma rede das organizações da sociedade civil engajadas no programa de compra local de alimentos para a agricultura familiar para abastecimento das cantinas escolares, em parceria com o Programa Mundial de Alimentos, PAN, denominado Abastecimento de Cantinas Escolares, com vista a melhorar as condições de aprendizagem das crianças e adolescentes nas escolas primárias e pré-escolares, na respectiva equidade e paridade de gênero, promover e preservar uma alimentação baseada na culinária e na cultura local. Desta forma, contribuir para o estabelecimento de um sistema regional nacional de certificado de alimentação nas cantinas escolares através de produtos locais, incentivando a produção em pequenas unidades agrícolas de produção familiar nas diferentes regiões de Tombali, Quinara, da Guiné-Bissau. Além disso, há projetos Mulheres Rurais, garantes da produção segura nos direitos e consolidação da paz. Também a Tiniguena implementa o projeto fortalecendo a igualdade de gênero através da agroecologia liderada por mulheres na África Ocidental, que conserta em melhorar a igualdade de gênero e empoderamento das mulheres nas zonas rurais de Senegal, Guiné-Bissau, Burkina Faso e Togo. O projeto apoia o fortalecimento do papel das mulheres na liderança e nos processos de tomada de decisão, melhorando o acesso ao controle sobre os recursos naturais e econômicos implementado no sistema alimentar biodiverso e resiliente ao clima. Agora vou apresentar os resultados do projeto Proteção e Restauração de Mangal e Paisagem Produtiva para fortalecer a segurança alimentar e mitigar as mudanças climáticas. O projeto é desenvolvido na região de Quinara, nas comunidades de Inchudé e Jaba da Porto, respectivamente no sul da Guiné-Bissau. O projeto Arroz e Mangal, esta mapa mais ou menos mostra onde o projeto é implementado nessa região sul da zona de Quinara do mapa de Guiné-Bissau. Temos Guiné-Conakry e temos Senegal.
So the project is focused in the southern part of Guinea-Bissau, around the islands and the arquipélago dos Bijagós.
O projeto é uma parceria da Tiniguena com o INBAP, Instituto de Biodiversidade das Áreas Protegidas, que tem como objetivo apoiar a restauração e reabilitação da funcionalidade e serviços dos ecossistemas de mangás degradados para melhorar a segurança alimentar e a mitigação das mudanças climáticas. O projeto é financiado pelo Fundo Mundial do Ambiente, GEF, através da União Internacional da Conservação da Natureza, UICN. Principais atividades desenvolvidas pela Tiniguena no âmbito do projeto: restauração de mangal, horticultura, descascadoras de arroz, produção de sal solar, reabilitação de bolanhas de água salgada através de instalação de tubos e válvulas e teste, e sensibilização sobre a importância e preservação de mangás para a zona costeira. Na região de Quinara, a campanha de restauração de mangás inicia-se na segunda quinzena do mês de setembro, até a primeira quinzena de outubro de cada ano, tendo em conta que as chuvas iniciam nos finais de junho e terminam mais tarde no finais de outubro. E como consequência das alterações climáticas, as chuvas que eram irregulares na Guiné-Bissau agora começam mais cedo e terminam mais tarde. Esta atividade realiza-se com os técnicos jovens ambientalistas que se juntam aos camponeses locais, jovens, mulheres, crianças, estudantes em férias para trabalhos coletivos, demonstrando o método de técnicas de plantação que são aplicáveis no princípio em job training nos sítios identificados. Ao longo de 5 anos, temos feito os trabalhos de restauração e conseguimos restaurar 107 hectares de mangás. De 2020 a 2023 tivemos grande impacto direto de Covid-19 no projeto, visto que tudo estava parado. E as espécies predominantes de mangal na região de Quinara, na tabanca de Inchudé e Jabada, é a vicênia. Aqui são as imagens dos trabalhos de reflorestação de mangal que são conduzidos todo o ano.
These are the images of the project, the restoration of the mangroves, local footing of local photos of the restoration project.
Horticultura. As atividades de horticultura cujas ações são desenvolvidas nos campos hortícolas de Nchudé e Jábara, onde se faz acompanhamento técnico das mulheres horticultoras, reforço das suas capacidades sobre manutenção dos canteiros, técnicas de adubação orgânica de plantas e combate às pragas e doenças de forma biológica, através de técnicas de aplicação de óleo de ninho, a rasicata indica. Montamos 2 perímetros hortícolas com sistema de bombeamento solar para aliviar o esforço das mulheres horticultoras. A campanha inicia-se com o apoio das sementes hortícolas para apoiar 169 mulheres beneficiárias do projeto, sendo 115 em Nchudé e 54 em Jábara. As atividades são divididas em fases. De outubro a novembro faz-se limpeza dos campos, preparação dos solos, de seguida em dezembro faz-se transplantio até a produção em fevereiro e março. No momento contamos com 2 perímetros hortícolas com sistema de bombeamento solar.
So these are, go back, volta para trás. These are 2 perimeters where they've planted os mangais, correto?
Não, das mulheres horticultoras.
The women agricultural women that are participating in the project, which is all powered by solar energy.
O projeto também apoiou as 2 comunidades com equipamentos de máquina de desbulha e descascamento, treinando na gestão, fornecendo acompanhamento técnico ao processamento e gestão de equipamentos, contribuindo para reduzir a perda pós-colheita. Esta é aqui a máquina descascadora das mulheres horticultoras. Produção de sal solar. Durante a duração do projeto, apoiou-se grupo de mulheres nas zonas beneficiárias do projeto e produção de sal solar através de inovação e evaporação de sal solar, utilizando coberturas de plástico para facilitar a evaporação solar de solmura, levando ao aumento da produção do sal, consumindo menos madeira de mangal e proporcionando melhores condições de trabalho. A imagem mostra os trabalhos de produção de sal.
These were the images of the salt production.
Reabilitação das bolanhas. O projeto, através do ONG Universel, financiado pelo fundo francês, realizou-se vários trabalhos, desde reforço de diques de separação, de cintura, de barragem, para proteger os arrozais contra inundações involuntárias de água salgada. Também melhoria de gestão hidráulica através de instalação de obras de regulação das águas e manutenção dos canais para permitir a instalação de tubos com as respectivas válvulas. Aqui é a imagem de recuperação das bolanhas nas zonas degradadas através de instalação de tubos.
These are the images of the rebuilding, recuperation of the walls of the project. Volta para trás, Jailson, por favor. Dos tubos dos tubos de água salgada, saltwater pipes.
Vale lembrar que utilizamos 3 tipos de tubo, de 500, 300 e 200 milímetros de diâmetro. Sensibilização. Na parte de sensibilização, promovemos cinedebates e limpeza. O lixo é um dos grandes problemas que os ecossistemas dos úmidos enfrentam, e as comunidades costeiras acabam por sofrer com poluição ambiental causada por mau uso de descarte de lixo, sobretudo plástico, que acabam a ficar nas zonas dos mangás e, consequentemente, pode levar à morte de espécies que habitam nos manguezais, como peixes, aves e caranguejos, destruindo o habitat dos moluscos, o que ameaça outras espécies de animais. O processo ecológico e contaminação de produtos provenientes da água dos mangás, o que afeta a saúde humana. Thank you. Obrigado.
So,
Agora,
thank you, Jailson, for the presentation. Thank you for your effort. We'll now pass a video of Jesus Christ. I was about to be knocked over by the chair. We'll now pass a video of the project Tiniguena, which is there we go.
No tiene amor, no tiene riqueza, no tiene beleza, no tem tudo, no tiene tudo ter amisti para si.
A Guiné-Bissau é um país de mangal. Durante séculos, os solos de mangal têm sido utilizados pelos agricultores para cultivar arroz. Com a subida do nível do mar e chuvas irregulares devido às alterações climáticas, muitos campos de arroz estão a ser abandonados. Um dos objetivos do projeto Arroz e Mangal é restaurar 1.500 hectares de mangal nos campos de arroz abandonados. O método de restauração é restabelecer as condições ecológicas naturais para encorajar o regresso de mangal. Para o conseguir, é necessário permitir que as marés inundem novamente as áreas a restaurar e, para isso, devem ser feitas aberturas nos diques dos antigos campos de arroz. As correntes da maré levam os frutos de mangal para os locais onde podem crescer. A outra forma de restaurar é obter sementes de mangal circundante e plantá-las diretamente na lama. Os propágulos são então plantados pela comunidade nas áreas a serem restauradas. O repovoamento da espécie Avicénia é mais complicado. As plantas jovens devem ser cuidadosamente desenraizadas para a replantação. Uma vez desenvolvido, de mangal, poderá oferecer novamente os seus muitos serviços: produção de peixe, camarão, ostras, madeira, sal ou mel, proteção da biodiversidade, mas também regulação climática e proteção da costa.
Tudo cheio de amor, a bonha terra guinena canta amor.
Thank you, Jailson, for this presentation, which basically exemplifies the true value that lies in the cooperation, civil society, local knowledge, and a true testament of what we can accomplish together to fight climate change. Now, I will pass the floor to my dear friend Nana Kweigyah. Nana Kweigyah is an artisanal fisher, a canoe owner, and a fisher leader. He is currently the national president of the Canoe and Fishing Gear Associations of Ghana and a member of the governing board of the Fisheries Commission of Ghana. He is also a steering committee member of CASA Initiative Ghana, representing the Fisheries Coalition, and previously he has been the youth leader representing Ghana at the African Confederation of Professional Organization of Artisanal Fisheries. He was born into a fisher family, with both his father and the grandfather being artisanal fishers, and his mother and the grandmother being fish processors and traders. He has been at the forefront of advocating for the rights of small-scale fishers and their effective participation in fisheries management and governance. And he's also very active on issues of safety at sea, in artisanal fisheries, fishers' welfare, and community resilience in the face of climate change and declining fisheries. Nana, thank you. I know this will be tough to you, but you are absolutely fine to do the presentation seated if you want. There's no need to put yourself through that pain if indeed you have.
Yeah, I asked Francisco if I can sit and do the presentation. They said, no, you don't have any excuse because I have crutches. I only came to the stage and saw someone without crutches sitting down and presenting Francisco. Good morning, good afternoon to you all. And please permit me to say a big thank you to the Atlantic Center and partners for putting this together beautifully and for supporting my participation at this program. I couldn't have disappointed the organizers because I appreciate the effort, the amount of effort that goes into organizing such events. So any last-minute disappointment is sometimes depressing. And my major motivation for honoring the invitation, in spite of the challenges, is the fact that the Atlantic Center is doing something good. The Atlantic Center is setting an example that small-scale fishers must not disappoint. And what example is that? Allowing small-scale fishers to participate in such high-level discussions, bringing local communities also to the platform to share our perspective, to make input, and to have our voice heard. And I think we can put our hands together for the Atlantic Center. If we are clapping for you, it also means we'll be asking for more. I've been asked to speak on the value of local and regional initiatives in the context of climate change and civil society. And I will keep it very brief, speaking on climate change as a global challenge and local actions, climate change and maritime security, and the role that coastal communities can play in maritime security. Last year, I spoke to you on the ISI PSK project, and I want to update you of the progress so far. On the blue economy, we have concerns as small-scale fishers and local communities. And at such a gathering, I want to share some of the concerns that we have. You may also have heard of the FAO voluntary guideline for securing sustainable small-scale fisheries in the context of food security and poverty eradication. And I want to sum it up, what it means to us. 2022 in Lisbon, small-scale fishers presented the call to action, highlighting priority areas that we want government to focus on. Subsequent to that, we came out with the rules of conduct for working with small-scale fishers because we needed to provide direction as to what kind of relationship we want to have with stakeholders. At this gathering, I also want to share something briefly on the rules of conduct for working with small-scale fishers. And I will end it with looking forward into the future. I am happy to be speaking to experts who appreciate the impact of climate change as a global issue, whether it is biodiversity loss, whether it's extreme weather event, whether it's rising sea surface temperature, whether it's rising sea levels, and the rest. You best appreciate them. And you are experts. I am an ordinary fisherman. And so we wouldn't even be able to speak so much to those issues. But the question is, if these are global issues, then what will actions that is being done in my hometown, that my small community, what will be its impact on global issues? These are global issues and it requires global actions. Why are we thinking that what is being done in my village, that small community, probably have impact on climate change. And I think this is where the slogan comes in: small in value, small in size, but big in value. We may be doing something very small, but its value in terms of impact it has on the immediate society is huge. And when I say so, I mean that the impact of climate change probably is felt differently at different places. Different people suffer different impact of the climate change. And it is important that solutions to climate change are tailored to suit the context, the environment, the place where the impact is felt. And that is why local actions are necessary, because they are tailored solutions. It brings about innovation as to how the people are affected and how they can overcome the challenges. Local actions are characterized by faster implementation because we do away with the usual bureaucratic delays. And from 3 days ago and today, I heard of, we spent 3 decades, the global community spent 3 decades discussing this. Before the international community takes a decision, it takes several years. At the local level, we can come together, agree on something, and then implementation is going. Yesterday, our organization had a meeting with fishers in the Western region because artisanal fishers have been excluded from the annual cruise fishing season. But the issue is on the widespread illegalities in the sector. So yesterday, they met at Western region, and they all agreed that light fishing, which is illegal in Ghana, what are we doing as fishers ourselves to support the effort to rebuild the stock? So yesterday, they met and they agreed that July, August, September, there wouldn't be any light fishing. Within few hours, we were able to come to terms with what we can do. So implementation tends to be faster when dealing with local action. Again, it enhances community engagement, and this is very key because it brings about co-production and it brings about ownership. And when there is ownership, you can be assured of active participation and sustainability. And for this reason, local initiatives are key. What then is the role of civil society? From 3 days ago, we also heard about the gap between researchers, scientists, and political actors. We are witnessing a gap between data and political decisions. And I think this is where civil society can fill the gap by bridging that gap between government decision makers, researchers, business people, individuals who are pushing for policy change and grassroots action. And civil society must not fail. Civil society cannot fail this responsibility of bridging this gap. Many of us expect local communities to take action to what you tend to call mitigation and adaptation. The question is, how much information have been made available to the local people for them to rely on to do the mitigation and the adaptation? So civil society has a key role in bridging this gap, making information available to the ordinary people so that it can inform decisions and actions that can be made at the local level. Climate change and maritime security. This is also an area that I cannot speak to it because all the people seated here are professors in this field. Whether the disruption of shipping lines, disruption in international trade, or rising costs in insurance, or illegal fishing, IUU fishing, or safety and stability, threat to safety and stability of installations, these things are known to you. But I think coastal communities have a role to play in maritime security. And this is where we will be asking the Atlantic Center to move forward to allowing us to participate in such high-level discussions, to engaging the communities and having the communities on their programs and probably supporting activities of local communities. Why is that important? local communities possesses knowledge, indigenous knowledge, and that is very key if we are talking about maritime security. We live by the sea. We know the sea better. We are familiar with patterns of the sea. What it means is that we are in a good position to detect unusual patterns. And so, with that knowledge and experience, we can act as early warning system when we are talking about maritime security, because we can easily detect unusual patterns. We are the biggest ocean users, and we are almost always present on the sea. And our communities also serve as gateway to the marine environment. So we can best be the first line of surveillance or watchdog. We can participate in monitoring and surveillance. And then in resource management, and I'm happy that currently we are all moving towards co-management. It allows local people to participate in decision-making. Ghana is currently implementing the co-management policy, and the government has formed the small pelagic co-management committees at the regional level. And about 2 weeks ago, the National Small Pelagic Co-Management Committee has also been formed. Again, the government has formed the Landing Beach Enforcement Committee, and the Landing Beach Enforcement Committee is supposed to help address illegalities in the artisanal sector. What we have proposed to our government is to strengthen the Landing Beach Enforcement Committee so that we can also participate in monitoring by undertaking sea patrols within the inshore exclusive zone, not as enforcers, but to monitor and share relevant information for action. We are not law enforcement, and so we cannot enforce the law. But we can monitor and share relevant information. So we have proposed to Ghana government to strengthen the Landing Beach Enforcement Committee. Now, what are the strategies? If indeed we want to partner local communities, we want local communities to take local initiative, we want local communities to be very active, what are the strategies? We are suggesting that there's a need to focus on inclusive collaboration. It is time we redefine the relationship we have with local communities. In Ghana, we have proposed to the civil society, other NGOs and civil society, and in fact, the Fisheries Commission, to institutionalize engagement with fishers. Because it has always been, come as and when we need you. Can we move forward to institutionalize engagement with fishers so that we can always keep the conversation going? We can be updating ourselves regularly and taking action regularly. There's also the need to incorporate local knowledge and needs of communities in the decisions that we make, in the various projects that we make, in the various developmental projects, in various infrastructural projects, and decisions that we make. There's a need to incorporate local knowledge. I will speak on this also in the next slide. There's a need to support capacity building and training for local communities. In spite of the knowledge and experience we have, you can build on that to enhance our activities. Collaborative management and knowledge exchange programs. Now the ISI-PSK project. At a time, illegal fishing has become widespread and enforcement is challenged. Fishers came up with the idea of revisiting indigenous knowledge and practices. Government introduced the one-month close season, but it came at a huge cost because the temporary loss of income to fishers has huge socio-economic impacts on ordinary people whose sole livelihood activity is fishing. Government has undertaken a study that showed 86% of fishers have fishing as sole livelihood activity. How then do you ask such a person to sit down for 1 month without any support? How do we survive? So agitation started. But then we proposed that why don't we look at indigenous practices, traditional practices? Because in the past, our forefathers conserved. If nothing at all, we have 1 day holiday each week as fishers, which in recent times, no one observes it, or few observe it. Can we go back and ensure that at least within the week, the fishing communities rest for a day, and other practices that we can adopt? So we went into partnership with the University of St. Andrews, the Fisheries Commission, and the Fisheries Committee for West Central Gulf of Guinea to undertake a study on the gendered impact of the close season, and then to look at indigenous practices that can be reintroduced. And we did a data collection last year, July, series of engagements, and I am happy to update you that the Fisheries Minister has met the project and has now committed to harmonizing indigenous and scientific knowledge to improve fisheries. The minister has indicated employing both scientific and indigenous knowledge to strengthen the fisheries sector. And at the upcoming UN Ocean Conference, Ghana is hosting a side event. Just check the topic: Bridging Conservation Gaps, Integrating Indigenous Practices for Equitable Fisheries in Ghana. Our project leader was Dr. Ife Sinashi Okafu Yahud, and she will be speaking at the side event to share insights as to what our studies unraveled. And this is how we influence policy. So by that, our small initiative, we have been able to get the attention of government, and now government will even want to market itself as adopting indigenous knowledge to improve fisheries governance. Now, the Safety at Sea project. This is one area I am very keen, because it was at a time, it was almost annual ritual that the weather will be bad, canoes will capsize, we will lose lives, we will lose properties, and there's nothing we can do, because that is that. In the past, our forefathers could put their feet in the sun and tell if there will be rain at sea or not. Unfortunately, we have not preserved those indigenous knowledge. We have almost lost them. And more so the fact that in recent times, you may mistaken those things they put there, satellite for a star. So these are some of the things. But we took a bold initiative to approach the Ghana Meteorological Agency. That can't you do anything about this? So we came into an agreement that, okay, what they can do is that they will share ocean state information, weather and ocean state information with us. What we can also do is to interpret. They organize a small training for us so that we can read and understand what they mean by. So when we interpret, then we can translate into local languages and we share on our platforms so that people can hear that the weather will be bad, the state of the ocean will be dangerous, go or don't go. Just this morning, we received the warning that there is thunder storm coming from southern Togo, and it is likely to reach the southern part of Ghana. And so quickly, voice message is sent out that this is what the Meteorological Agency is saying. So people should take care. We have also trained community information center operators. You know, in Ghana, we have those, they use horns to make announcements, like announcers. Yeah, we have trained some and created a platform for them. So we put it on and encourage them to also share it with the community so that everybody becomes aware of the state of the ocean and the weather. And by so doing, we are able to caution people to either stay out of sea when it is dangerous or to take the greatest caution when they have to go to sea.
Nana, please conclude. 1 minute.
Now on the blue economy. This is what is, it is everywhere now. And maritime stakeholders are keen about blue economy. But we are concerned about ocean grabbing, the displacement, the dispossession. So kindly take note of that. We are concerned about development that negatively impacts livelihood of fishers. And we are concerned about loss of access to marine resources because of development of infrastructure, oil and gas, and stuff. Kindly take note, and then you act on them for us. Now the SSF guidelines. The whole of the guideline is about human rights. And it is important that we adopt the guidelines in our activities so that we'll be able to appreciate the respect for culture, the right of women and indigenous practices, the right to participate in and be consulted in decision-making, among others. Now, the rules of conduct for working with small-scale fishes. This is very key. We expect stakeholders to work with local communities. But how should we do that? What we are saying is that always respect the rights of the fishers. And nothing about the fishers without them. Don't be speaking for them. Don't be speaking for local communities. Just create a platform. And what you can do is to enhance the voice of the local communities. Many NGO stakeholders have assumed the role of representing local communities. It's about time we stop. Let the local community represent themselves. And whatever they say, help amplify it instead of representing them. Now, the right to our own voice, I've said that. And then if you want to work with local communities, it means you will also have to fund them, support local communities. If we expect local initiatives to help address climate change and its impact, we must make funding and technical support available to the local communities to be able to perform. Finally, we'll have to look at strengthening the network between local initiatives and global movement. And as we attend UNOC next week, it is one of the things we are looking at, building a stronger network with international organizations to support the work that we do. We need to encourage the collaboration between government, business, and civil society, and we need to be identifying successful initiatives and then scaling them up so that gradually we spread the positive impact across. I want to say a big thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Nana. Another example of, and a lot of food for thoughts for our group here today. In the morning, this is the morning, but in the morning, we had the higher education asking for better information and more resources to spread their knowledge, their technical capabilities. And now we have civil society, regional communities saying, we need it. And where is the linking line here that connects one side to the other? I'll leave you this food for thoughts so we can later discuss it at the Q&A. And we've now sailed from Guinea-Bissau, Ghana, and I will go to South Africa. So it is my absolute honor to introduce you Julia Heemstra. She founded AMANZI, Water to Schools, in 2022. AMANZI is a humanitarian organization that exclusively utilizes climate-smart technology to establish sustainable water and sanitation systems at no-fee schools in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. Prior to establishing AMANZI, Julia orchestrated a series of large international WASH grants impacting close to 10,000 children and adults in South Africa. In 2024, Julia completed a master's degree with distinction in humanitarian action with UNITAR and Oxford Brookes University in the United Kingdom. Thank you, Julia, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Francisco. And first off, a tremendous thank you to the Atlantic Center for inviting me to be here. And also a tremendous thank you to everyone who's in this audience. I have learned so much from these panels, and I've learned so much from the conversations I've been fortunate to have. So I thought I would start by acknowledging perhaps the biggest elephant in the room. I know Jan Hans talked about an elephant earlier, but perhaps I have the biggest elephant, but I work in an area with lots of elephants, so that feels quite appropriate. So let's start with the elephant in the room, which is it's a very interesting time to be talking about climate change as an American, specifically as an American who is working in humanitarian action. I want to acknowledge the choices on the parts of many humanitarian agencies recently to scrub their websites of references to climate change, references to DEI, and I understand that choice. And I want to also open with the fact that I, along with my board, have decided we are leaning into our mission right now. We are 100% embracing the fact that we address climate change, and we are 100% embracing the fact that we work with impoverished Black South African students to enable them to have a future. So we are holding the line, and it will be interesting to see what happens in the future. So with that elephant acknowledged, I'm going to talk about where I get to work. So I'm very fortunate in the sense that I have two citizenships. I'm a South African and I am an American, and I really feel like that dual citizenship has been what has enabled me to move forward with the initiative that I have founded, AMANZI Water to Schools. One of the things I love the most about our name is the fact that AMANZI means water in both the isiXhosa and the isiZulu languages. And for those who are familiar with South African history, you may remember that traditionally those are two tribes that have actually warred with one another. And I love that they have this one word that brings them together, AMANZI, which again, as we all know, we are comprised of water, and water is life. So we are working in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. What I love is whenever I tell people I work in South Africa, people are like, oh my gosh, I've been to Cape Town, I love Cape Town. We are not working in Cape Town. I also love Cape Town. But Cape Town is like a first world country compared to where I'm working. I'm working in a very, very rural area with the highest levels of unemployment, the highest levels of poverty, the least amount of water, the least amount of electricity, and the highest degree of crime. So that's where I get to work, and that is also my original home. So I thought I'd open by talking about some of my failures. So we start with the bar very low. But I grew up in South Africa in the 1980s. I was witness to apartheid, and that is very much what has motivated me to do this work today. In fact, on a conversation on the walk over today, Tonto was asking me, what keeps you motivated? And I actually had to reconsider that question. That is entirely it, that I was witness to what I consider to be one of the most atrocious human rights violations over the course of our lives. And that has been what has motivated me to do this work. As soon as I had a chance to return to South Africa when I was 17, I had grown up there and then came to the US for high school. I returned to South Africa, and I started a farm school at that time. And this was when the South African government was starting to dismantle apartheid, but it was really just a way to convince the international community that they should lift sanctions. And so what I was doing was I was trying really hard to get these two little kids to speak enough English so that they could enter the newly desegregated schools. And that was when I really, really became passionate around this issue of the fact that education is so often the bridge out of poverty. So I did succeed with those two, with actually another one of the students that I taught that year. And then I returned to the US to attend college, and my school fell apart after about 6 months. And that was my first experience with non-sustainable humanitarian action. And that was something that haunted me, and to a certain degree continues to haunt me, that I started this school, and that ultimately I did not build it in a sustainable way. As soon as I graduated from college, I returned to South Africa again. I'd been fortunate enough to get some academic credit while I was in college to work in the townships, as soon as it was legal for white people to work in the townships in South Africa. And when I graduated from college, Mandela was the president, went back, and I worked for a grassroots development organization, and I did that for a year and a half. And I was the only white person working in this township of 60,000 Black South Africans, and very early on it became clear that our organization was not actually fully developing people to be able to take over the organization. And so inevitably and eventually I went to the administration and I said, look, I really think that the people I am working with should be running this organization, not myself. And so I left that situation as well, also very aware that humanitarian action, I believe, is really ideally about working yourself out of a job. Back in 2017, after I had had a whole career in healthcare, because I kind of thought I would be able to let go of humanitarian action, but clearly that was not the case, I got back involved with humanitarian action. And at that point, I started working on international WASH grants in South Africa. And I was working with organizations that were putting in flush toilets in water insecure areas. And that also did not necessarily resonate with my ethics. So that was when I found out about the master's degrees at UNITAR and went ahead and enrolled in one of those master's degrees, and that was the origin of AMANZI. So AMANZI Waters to Schools, we wrote this mission very much with an eye to sustainability, partners with South African schools to develop sustainable water solutions and bridges to opportunities for students. So what's the issue? The issue, as I've mentioned already in South Africa, is that under apartheid, the majority of Black South Africans, Black South Africans, were denied the right to a full education. And really what we're seeing now is that education is this bridge out of poverty. And so I went back to the Eastern Cape to work on this specific problem, to basically try to keep schools open to enable these students to have the opportunity to move forward, to create a future for themselves and also to create a future for the country. So as you can see, the real issue is that without water, schools are forced to reduce instruction hours or even worse, close. And that was very much the situation that I encountered with the first school that I've been working with. Also very important is to take a look at these employment rates, because without a high school degree, you have a very high chance, over a 50% chance of unemployment. But if you actually go all the way up to a college degree, you have a 94% chance of a good job in South Africa. So, we know what the problem is. What is the solution? AMANZI has decided that we will provide options and resources for water solutions. But most importantly, just like my fellow panelist was noting, we don't make the decisions about what water solutions are the correct water solutions for the schools. The schools make those decisions. We come to the table with a whole buffet of climate smart solutions. The school decides what is going to be the best solution for them. And then also, the other piece that I realized through all of my various failures in humanitarian action before this, was that a siloed approach does not work in these situations. Poverty is incredibly complex, humanitarian action is even more complex, and so just saying all we do is WASH solutions is not an appropriate way to really tackle the complexity of humanitarian action. So we take a very holistic approach. So again, what makes us different? And I will be so thrilled if someone can tell me if there's another organization doing this. But we exclusively use climate-friendly technology to address the world water crisis. What was really important to me when I was really getting deep into the WASH work was how do we get upstream of this issue? It just didn't make sense to me when we were putting in various solutions that seemed to actually be accelerating the world water crisis as we were trying to address it. So our approach is very, very much looking at how do we continuously ask ourselves, how do we get further upstream, how do we get further upstream, how do we get further upstream, and work ourselves out of the problem that we're in, which is the world water crisis. Again, we work in a very holistic way that acknowledges the interconnection of challenges. So you all are the climate scientists. I am not a climate scientist, but I have just been trying to figure out this situation in the Eastern Cape. As you can see, South Africa is the 5th most water-scarce country in sub-Saharan Africa. And then most important is really looking at this trend right here, that average annual rainfall in South Africa is way lower than the world average, and that we have this significant trend of increasing temperatures. So this is the community where I've been working. This is actually a very, very interesting community because it is the closest rural community to the university community where I was raised. But very interestingly, when I was growing up there, this was the community that was our farming community. So it's where we got our vegetables, it's where we got our fruit. And in the last 30 years, most of those farms have stopped farming because of the rainfall trends. And so now we have a community where over 87% of this community are unemployed. And most of the farms have transitioned to game reserves. They don't need as many laborers. And so we have a community to a certain degree that is somewhat paralyzed by climate change because most of them also do not have the resources to leave the community. As you can see, this right here, I'm not sure if you can actually read it, but this small pink square is the only percentage of the community that has higher education. So again, we have this very, very strong link between education, poverty, unemployment. So current enrollment at the Riebeek East Combined School is 98 students. Very interestingly, when I first started working at Riebeek East, the greatest risk of all was the fact that we would go sometimes 5 days in a row with no water at all. And there was a very high chance that the Department of Ed was actually going to close this school. This school is at the end of an over 20-kilometer road that I very regularly get flat tires on, and also floods on a regular basis. So the idea that we could actually have these students transported to another school, which would be way down this just terrible road, is somewhat farcical. So really, really important that this school in this small rural community stays open. And prior to AMANZI's work, there was no reliable water or sanitation system. So what have we done? We have put in an extensive rainwater harvesting system. You can see this was the roof that that was on the building when I first started my work, and this is after we did the full renovation of the roof. I worked closely with the local university to project what we could look at relative to rainwater harvesting. When I started at the school, there was 2,500 liters total for all 98 students. And now we have a tank farm that stores over 75,000 liters. Another very important thing to pay attention to is, so often in South Africa, we're dealing with asbestos roofs. And so here we actually had a great roof that was not asbestos, but we had all asbestos gutters. And so one of the great expenses of my project is usually disposing of asbestos correctly in an environmentally appropriate manner. So here's our 75,000 liters of rainwater stored, and what's incredible is that my team that's over there every single day, pretty much about once a week, I get a text from them saying, look, our rainwater tanks are actually overflowing. These were the original toilet blocks that I was faced with. Flush toilets, but no water. And of course, the bigger issue that actually does close schools down is if a toilet goes too long without being able to be flushed, it becomes a huge public health concern. And so that's when a school will be closed and oftentimes not reopened. So what did we do? We ended up working with some local innovators, actually out of Cape Town, who have developed a carbon negative concrete. And this is one of the things that I'm perhaps most passionate about. Who would have ever thought that concrete would be so interesting to me? But as many of you probably know, over 40% of all greenhouse gas emissions are actually from the construction industry. So if we're actually going to look at climate change, we need to be looking at the impact of the building and the construction industry on the planet. And so I got really passionate about how do I build buildings that could actually be carbon neutral or carbon negative. So what we do in South Africa is we take the biomass, the chip biomass, from invasive plant species, which are a huge issue relative to our surface water. And they grow all the, we have these limited areas of surface water, and they usually have plenty of invasive plant species growing right along them. And the invasive plants, of course, end up soaking up a lot more of the water than the indigenous plants would. And so we take that chip biomass and we replace sand and gravel in traditional Portland cement with that chip biomass. And my engineers that I'm working with out of Cape Town, who are in collaboration with ETH Zurich, have actually determined that this is now a true carbon negative product, not just carbon neutral. So these are our toilet blocks that are made out of the carbon negative concrete. And then very, very importantly, the Riebeek East school governing body and the principal decided to go entirely waterless with the toilets, which has been another huge win for us, because had we not done that, we would not have water security at the school. So here are our waterless toilets, and I will say that I'm a lot more comfortable these days with my face sort of like right down in one of these toilets figuring out what's going on than speaking on a stage like this. But yes, these are our waterless toilets. I think it's really important to understand that when you're using climate smart technology in these rural areas, it has to be simple. So these toilets have about 9 parts. And you know, all respect to the various organizations that have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars in trying to develop the best toilet. But a toilet with 75 parts that could easily break is not going to work in rural South Africa where I'm doing my work. I need to have a toilet that has a very, very few number of parts, and I need to have people on my staff who can fix those parts when they break because they 100% will break. The other thing that's really important to me is to use technology that's being developed out of the Global South. And I think as someone who spends a lot of my time in the Global North, I'm always just profoundly confused by the fact that people in the Global North don't understand that some of the best innovations relative to climate change are coming out of the very communities that are most impacted by climate change. So I feel very, very strongly if I can find technology that has been developed in South Africa, that's the technology that I want to use, because that's also the technology that can be fixed when it breaks in South Africa. The holistic approach. Here is our team. And one of the things that I've gotten really, really passionate about too is creating second chances. So Yolisa and Nolu work for AMANZI right now. And both of them went to the Riebeek East Combined School. Both of them did not have the opportunity to complete high school. And so what we're doing, going back to the second failure, is we are really training our team to be able to take over these various systems. And so Nolu and Yolisa, really high chance of long-term unemployment for their entire lives, but instead, my 2 contractors, Charnay and Karena, right there, are working with them daily to teach them to really understand these systems so that they can actually operate them for the long term. And then lastly, the holistic approach that we're taking. Really early on, I realized I can keep a school open with water, but then what? And I had principals coming to me and saying, I don't have teachers. I had principals also coming to me and saying, we don't have furniture to sit on in the staff room. And these are all projects that we've ended up doing. But most importantly, early on, I realized at the Riebeek East Combined School that many of the learners were only eating at school. And so finally we had water, we had security for the school, but these kids were so hungry they weren't learning. And so what we've done now is we've actually developed, and we're just about to double the size of this, a whole food garden where we are supplementing the food that the school provides to the students. Right now that's working out to be about, the school receives a budget of about 12 cents, US cents a day to feed each one of these children. And so we're able to create a significant amount of additional nutritional sustenance for the students. So again, we feel like it's very important to have the holistic approach. So again, I just want to wrap up by saying I 100% acknowledge that I don't have most of the answers. But what I can tell you is that I'm trying really hard, really, really, really hard to figure out what those answers are. So I 100% would welcome questions, responses. I'm very much learning, but I'm committed to doing this work in a way that benefits the planet as well as benefits the learners in South Africa.
Wow. What a great presentation. Thank you all for your commitment in empowering local communities, in sharing their voice, and highlighting their difficulties. And thank you all for being here. So, how much time do I have, Captain Cabral? Circa 15 minutes. 15 minutes for 15 minutes for intense Q&A with an engaging audience. The floor is yours. Let's start with Professor Larissa.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for a very interesting panel. My question goes for Julia. I wanted to ask you two questions, actually. First, what does it take to scale up your project? And second, and I think for me it's very important, do you face political challenges with your project in South Africa? Thank you so much.
Oh, in South Africa?
Or anywhere else. I mean,
everywhere.
Okay, so I would like to hear about that. Thank you so much.
Should I?
We'll take one more question. Wait. From Fels.
Can I?
Fels, yeah.
Hi, thank you for the presentations. My name is Felso, master student in political science and international relations, and I happen to be a civil engineer as well. So water projects are always interesting to me because I also have tried to start my own startup on water resilient communities. So I will try actually to comment, maybe because you said you wanted contributions, to comment on one of the ways that I have researched and can potentially scale up solutions like that one is using geospatial technology, GIS, because they give you a wider view or perspective of what's happening in the ground and where you can install the tanks and even distribution systems for an optimal distribution of the solutions in the community. And I'm saying this because in Africa you have scattered communities, and so it might be very hard to implement these solutions. But GIS is definitely one of the methodologies that you can explore, and I will be happy to follow up on this conversation because something that I've worked on, and I have some expertise on it. But my actually question would be, how do you make sure that you how do you treat the water? Because during the high season or rainy season, you don't need to actually treat it, but you definitely need to make sure that it has the quality that is required, minimum quality that is required for it to be used during the dry season. So how do you maintain the quality of the water during the most challenging time? And maybe I will follow up also because there are some alternatives in Africa that can be used for that.
Please.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will answer these two questions first.
I might stand up if that's okay. Excellent questions. Thank you, and excellent comments. Literally, anyone who has ideas about how we can improve with AMANZI, I want to hear them so badly. So first up, question about scaling up. Oh my goodness, I think about this all day long, every day. Because what I also want to acknowledge is that I feel like AMANZI was like this little sprout with two little leaves on it, and we were next to this massive building like the World Trade Center, which was like USAID, and then suddenly that building fell, and we're still standing. It's kind of astounding. Relative to scaling up, this is linked to that image because I've been very fortunate that AMANZI is entirely funded right now by individual donors. And that is the only reason why we're standing when the massive World Trade Center of USAID has been somewhat dismantled next to us. The challenge that I have is that these donors, and I just had a big fundraising event last week, are like, when's the next school? When's the next school? When's the next school? And I have been working with the Riebeek East Combined School for 2.5 years, trying to refine this model, refine it further, get it better, improve our systems. And so it's this eternal tension that I'm feeling between donors who are like, let's do another school, let's do another school. And I'm like, but we're not ready yet. And the other challenge is that I have now met with 5 different schools. And keep in mind that I had this whole history of working with schools in the area under these international WASH grants that actually are unviable right now, which is also the other thing that haunts me every single day, because I think about these schools. One school in particular has a compromised fence around it, which means that vandals broke in and stole the whole ceiling out, stole all the electrical wires out. So these 500 primary school students are sitting under an asbestos roof that's either raining asbestos on them on a dry day or raining rain on them on a wet day. In addition to that, the community sewage runs through the back of this school property, just open sewage, and I have never seen this before. But these 500 elementary school students are actually just open defecating behind the buildings because the toilet blocks are too bad to be used. I have never seen that. That is the next level. And so I said to the Department of Ed, I will work with the school if you can put a fence up that guarantees that the donor assets will not be gone tomorrow morning. And I will work with the school if you can work with the municipality to get this open sewage that's flowing by 500 students every single day rerouted, because then I can actually get contractors to be willing to go to this location. That's one of 5 schools that all have equally horrific situations. And those are the schools that literally I think about at 2 a.m. But scaling up is something that we intend to do. I'm actually headed back to South Africa right after this conference. I have a school that I'm intending to meet with. It may be the one. But it is like a marriage for us. When we commit to a school, it is a long-term relationship. We are not a parachute in and parachute out humanitarian organization. So if anything, the relationship just shifts into sustainability. So scaling up has been very challenging because I want to make sure that every step that we take is entirely sustainable. Political challenges. They're everywhere. What I didn't realize was coming back from this last trip in South Africa, how much I'd become reliant on having one of my 2 countries not posing political challenges to me. Now I can tell you, I feel like our greatest political challenges are actually coming from the United States. I am fully aware, there's actually a documentary being made about our work right now. I'm fully aware that I am putting AMANZI on the line by saying that we will only use climate smart technology. We believe in the science of climate change, and that we serve impoverished Black South African students. Also in a white Afrikaner community that I will tell you is not experiencing a genocide. I also can only hold that line. So we'll see what the future holds. I have faith that there are enough people in the United States who now want to really redirect their resources into making change, that we may be able to continue to float. I also will say that in the last week, I've had 2 donors give me smallish donations, but say, I know that you're going to be able to take this dollar and stretch it further than anyone else I know, and I'm proud of that. Within South Africa, I've decided to work with the Department of Ed. There would be no need for AMANZI at all if the Department of Ed was actually fulfilling its constitutional obligations. I will work with them. And what I've actually said to my partners at the Department of Ed is, let's work together, because if you actually intend to close down a school, I need to know that, because I need to not be investing over R1 million into a school that you intend to close. So it makes sense to work hand in hand in that capacity with the Department of Ed. Treating the water. We have a 3-part system in, and we use UV purification to treat our water right now. Again, this is something that is not my area of expertise, but I've brought in local experts who put in rainwater harvesting systems and actually purify the water. So the 3-part system and actually UV purification is far more advanced than some of the other purification systems that we see for water in the area. But I really enjoyed your question about the challenges and the tensions between the dry season and the wet season. And I want to just go back to the fact that had we not gone waterless with these toilets, we would not have water security at this school. By choosing to go waterless, and just as a side note, I will put it out there, the other thing that I've been working extraordinarily hard on for 2 years, do not have the answer yet, is the idea of a circular sanitation economy, where we intend to eventually reuse the waste, reuse the urine once it has been sanitized as either a soil conditioner or a fertilizer. But had we not gone waterless, we would not have water security. And I really think that it's important for us to start to reframe the idea around sanitation when it comes to sanitation being waterborne sanitation as we move forward in the world water crisis. And I'll just close this question by saying that in the United States, in my home community, people always say to me, "Oh, you're that girl who's doing all that really cool work with water in Africa." And I'm like, well, actually, truthfully, I spend more of my time working on poop than I spend working on water. And I think we really need to think in very progressive ways when it comes to sanitation relative to the world water crisis.
Thank you, Julia. Definitely a deserved round of applause. So we'll follow up with two more questions. Two more questions. Admiral.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I also want to add my voice to commend this panel for very great conversations, and also for the work they are doing for the most vulnerable in our societies who are normally not on our radar. I want to now come to my countryman, Nana Kweigyah. I just left the Navy, and I believe we are not the most popular among them. We've always had our challenges trying to enforce the laws. And my question is, I was a bit confused, and when you said, we all know light fishing is one of the biggest challenges that we have some confrontation with fishermen on it. And it's illegal, it's in the laws. So I was a bit confused when you said that you met and decided that for 3 months you are not going to engage in light fishing. Does that mean that after 3 months you will go back to illegality? But I really appreciate all the great work and the voice you are giving to the least head in our communities. I think if I was still in the Navy, and I'm going to advise them, they should work more closely with you to listen to your side of that it's always better to involve you. The last one is on, we brought up a technology that was environmentally friendly. Canoe, you use wooden canoes. And these were developed centuries ago. And in modern times, we need to start thinking about going beyond them. I know in between the Navy and then some technology and shipyards, we developed aluminum canoes, which we gave some out to some of your members to try out. They spend 25% of the fuel capacity that your wooden canoes do. Maintenance is almost zero. Maneuverability, endurance, and efficiency in fishing is great. And it's also climate friendly because it burns less fuel and also has more technology for safety and all other things. I don't know whether it has come to your radar now that you are a member of the Fisheries Commission. And I met the minister before I left office and discussed it with her, and she said they were going to embrace it. I want to hear from you how far with that technology. I believe it will help our fishermen. The last one is on the need for marine spatial planning. And I know you go into the oil fields, and we are there to try to stop you, and that brings a lot of confrontation. You called it space grabbing. It's important that it is well defined where people can fish, where they can do their oil and gas activities and other things. But we trying to stop you from going there. It's not stopping you from doing your work. But there are also safety issues, as you know. These are producing highly
Admiral, please.
high gases that, the safety issues regarding these canoes. So I want you to respond to some of these. Thank you.
Okay, this was a very 2-3 questions all in one. Evelyn, please just wait a second for Nana to answer these questions, and then we'll give the floor to you. Is that okay? Thank you, Evelyn.
So can I go
yeah,
ahead?
please.
Right. Thank you very much for the questions, very practical ones, and I really love them. I want to start with the issue of light fishing. Prof, you will agree with me, and I shared same message this morning with some of stakeholders who were also questioning, now, why are you saying that, okay, they should stop light fishing for 3 months? But the thing is illegal. The question is, why hasn't government enforced the law all this while? Why haven't you enforced the law? Now, if you are not able to enforce the law, then practically there is something wrong with the law. If the law is not, if you are not able to enforce the law, then there is something wrong with the law. So we made a proposal in 2022 to the then minister that because you have allowed this to entrench itself, let us have a long-term plan of fading this out so that the people will not be so much affected. It was not given attention. But incidentally, something was interesting. You remember the Fisheries Commission granted special dispensation to tuna people to do light fishing. So the question is, if light fishing is harmful, how do you grant special dispensation to one group of people under the law, but ask another group of people not to do light fishing at all? Now, the more concerning issue is the fact that who introduced light fishing? It is the Fisheries Commission that introduced light fishing in years back into the inshore sector, because catch in the inshore sector was declining. Now, when they were introducing the light fishing into the inshore sector, Canoe people agitated that this thing will not be helpful. It will affect us. They said, no, it has no impact. Then later, when Canoe people started adopting the same method, then they quickly went to make a law that it is illegal. So, what are you doing? So what we realize is that, okay, now the Canoe people also think that by stopping the light fishing, their business will collapse. And we have told them that no, we are not sure our business will collapse. So let us all commit ourselves to this 3 months of not using the light fishing. Within the period, we will engage government on our concerns and how it can be addressed. You will also agree with me that inshore vessels fish with light. But whenever you are talking about light fishing, you talk about light fishing by canoes. The question is what the inshore people doing not illegal? Why is no one talking about inshore people doing light fishing? So we live in a situation where government has not been able to enforce the law. So we on our own are setting an example that we can do something. If we are able to implement the 3 months without the light fishing, then we can have the grounds to tell the people that, look, why don't we continue with it? Then we'll build it up. Whilst we engage government to have a plan that currently, due to rising sea surface temperature, species are moving to much deeper waters, species are moving far away, and so there are safety issues regarding our activities because you have to go far, you have to spend more hours at sea, and those issues. How are we comprehensively addressing these issues vis-a-vis the transformation that is also ongoing in our sector? And I think somebody said something this morning, and it is one of the things that is in our sector. You realize that things are changing, but we are not being guided on how we should also change, because the old method that we use probably are not giving us the catch now. And the state is not researching into more sustainable methods that local communities can adopt. So local communities on their own are trying all kinds of methods to get the results. So, and linking that also to the industrial fishing activities and its impact on artisanal fishery. You remember Saiko, where in our industrial vessels harvest small pelagics, freeze them, and then transship them illegally and sell it at the local market at the expense of local people getting a catch. So these are all part of the issues we want to discuss with government. But we want to first demonstrate faith that we are ready to take action to end these illegalities by stopping this light fishing within the period they say, the scientists say, is the biological period, for which reason we were to do close season and agitations all over. So within the biological period, we are working at doing the most responsible fishing doing away with all illegalities whilst we engage government and on how we can progress from there. On the fiberglass canoe, I'm happy this has come up. And if you should go out there, what was given out is not in operation. We had our issue when we had it, because for a very long time, the most critical group who owned the decision-making power in the sector were not engaged. Now, in the artisanal sector, the canoe owners are the major stakeholders. The fishing crew are practically our workers. The women processors are practically our customers. We mobilize the factors of the fishing gear and everything. So the decision as to fishing is made by us. The question is, why were canoe owners not engaged on the introduction of the fiberglass canoe? We could have made input as to the kind of canoe we want. And we have argued that what was brought, there isn't much enthusiasm. Because in contemporary times that safety at sea issues have become concerned, in contemporary times that we are spending so much time at sea, we would have even wished to have a fiberglass canoe that have storage facilities that we can even store first aid equipment, a fiberglass canoe that have GPS that will help us with safety at sea issues. Nothing like that. So there's nothing enthused about that canoe. Again, communication around that canoe. How do I purchase it? What is the price? What is the payment plan? Nothing like that is communicated to canoe owners. But we own the decision. So you work with the chief fisherman and you selected people and we gave it to them. No problem. But then, where have we got into? So probably, if you were to be with them again, we would have wished that we restart this whole thing. We will put forward the kind of canoe we want and the kind of things that is engaging our mind that we think we can use that project to address. And then we can embrace and then we'll look at it.
Thank you.
You finally on the incursion.
Okay, we have just, please be very fast so we can still hear the question of Evelyn, and then we conclude to our all-deserved lunch. Yes.
Finally on the incursion, the issue is about what did the impact assessment? Because the law requires not only environmental impact assessment, but fisheries impact assessment. Unfortunately, it appears this is not adhered to because they work with EPA and then you come up with the environmental impact assessment and something small is put there to represent fishing. When the law requires that a separate fisheries impact assessment should be done. So that if comprehensive fisheries impact assessment is done, then we can tell how the installations there and the activities impact ours. And then we can find a way of addressing them. But because we don't pay much attention to the fisheries impact assessment, we tend to neglect how those activities impact. Now, in Ghana's particular case, you have your oil and gas installations there with that lights, and light attracts the fish. So all our fish go there. And you say we shouldn't come there for our fish. How do we do that? So it is important that we pay attention to fisheries impact assessment when doing these installations so that we'll be able to address all those issues that comes with it. And then the incursions into the safety zones and then the installations will be addressed, whilst also keeping constant communication and engagement with fishers so that our concerns can be addressed. Thank you, sir.
Perfect. My question will be very short. It's also addressed to Nana. And it's something at the end of your presentation, which gave me a bit of hope, because you said we should look at successful projects and scale them up at national level or beyond. As local community initiatives, which partners do you need to scale up things more broadly? Because obviously you're local. If you want to scale it up nationally, who do you need to engage with?
Yeah, thank you very much. What we have come to realize is absence of accurate data in our sector. And so for us, we are always looking at having partnership with researchers, with institutions that will help us put up the right data in place. Now, we are implementing safety at sea, and we all see it gives us some results. What is the data? What is this, where is the statistics? That speaks to the situation before the initiative and the situation after the initiative. And based on that, we can now replicate in other areas. So one area that we may have to focus on is gathering data on activities of small-scale fishers. Many a times we talk about interventions for fishers. How many are the fishers? Where are the fishers? What is their background? Now, a particular case we had in Ghana, and if Sarah has heard of my position on the close season. Now you are talking about intervention for fishers, and people will say, but how many are the fishers? Who is a fisher? We have proposed that engage the Ghana Statistical Service. Let them conduct a study on the fishers, and they will be able to determine the level of dependence of fisher households on fisheries, and that will very likely inform the kind and quantum of support that can be provided for fishers. So data collection is key, and when we have addressed that, then we can look at funding partners who can provide funding and technical support to be able to scale our project up. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. So I will close asking our panelists a final question to wrap up this session. If you could, in one word, define civil society in climate action, what word would you choose? Nana.
Oh, you want
yeah, I was looking at you. I thought you were looking at me. But Nana.
You said one word.
So the future of civil society and climate action. One word.
Okay. I will choose collective.
Okay.
Collective.
Better word than okay. Just kidding.
Collective.
Collective. Jailson.
Luta.
Luta, fight. And Julia.
Mine's definitely hope.
Hope. Hope, fight, collective. I think throughout, during the last 2 days, Ana Aguilar said, focus on the local context, focus on the local communities. And Tanto yesterday said, focus on everyone, no matter how small. And I think hope, collectively, and fight really translates the purpose of this panel in highlighting civil society as one of the key mechanisms we have to fight climate change. Thank you so much for your attention. A big round of applause for everyone.
Can I ask you all to be back here at the 2:15?